board previously met in closed session under exceptions C8, C9, C1, and C11. With that, if I can have recall to order the April 23rd, 2024 Waukegan Public School Board of Education meeting. If I can have a roll call.
Mr. McBride.
Yes.
Ms. Fabian. Ms. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Mr. Riddle.
Yes.
Ms. Hannah.
Yes.
Ms. Lensing. President Ewing.
Yes, we do have a quorum. Ms. Lensing is present and should be arriving any moment. Ms. Fabian is not in. With that, I'd like a motion to go back into open session.
Make a motion.
Motion by Ms. Hannah.
Second.
Second by Mr. Riddle. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. We are now in open session. Mr. White, if you'd be so kind as to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, I am going to, we are starting a little bit late, so I do have a president's report, but for the sake of time, we're going to go to the student board member report.
Yes, thank you, President Ewing. I'm trying to get all my wires on the floor to move so I could get up. Hi, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. You know, we're getting to that time of the year where the school year is almost over, so I know a lot of students are very happy about that, ready for summer break. As we can see here, this is my 23rd student board member report. This one's a pretty short one, just talking about a meeting that I had and a few events this month that I've been a part of. If we could go on to the next slide. As it says, April in review meetings. Next slide. The really most important meeting that I had, at least this month, was with Principal Hill and Mrs. With the College and Career Center director, if I'm correct, on the 11th and 19th of April, so about a week or so apart from each other. The purpose, as always, was to discuss the different ways and methods to assist scholars within the current college and career programs at our high school level. That's a whole conversation that we had with them just to figure that stuff out. Next slide, please. Yes, the Career and Tech Fair. Yes, I did go to the Career and Tech Fair. It was a great experience in general, honestly, and I appreciate the team that did work on it and just being able to have students to come and see the different careers that they can do after high school, especially the main dog pound that had so many groups of people in different companies that came in to present for our students. And I know one of my old friends, where we walked in, she just gravitated towards the medical field, and she had a lot of opportunities that she did get after high school and during the summer. So, you know, we could see students are actively getting these opportunities that we want to give our students to succeed now and later in life. And obviously one of these pictures is one of those army trucks that they did bring, and that was pretty cool. I didn't get a chance to get inside it because I did come pretty late, but it was pretty cool. And the coffee was pretty good too, even though there wasn't any creamer because I don't drink heavy coffee, but just drink dark coffee, but it was pretty good in general. Next slide, please. Drill down, yes. This is actually an old picture. I couldn't find any other pictures, and I did not have time to take pictures on my own. But drill down is always, for the people that don't know, is the final ROTC event where each company competes against each other for best squad, best platoon, saver, tap out, individual tap out, guide on tap out. And I think that's all the 5 categories. I think I'm pretty sure on that one, right? Great event as always, great attendance overall. I enjoyed it as one of the company commanders. I enjoyed my time, and obviously this was my final event as a company commander, so it was a bittersweet moment for me, at least, to be knowing that we worked very hard this year to work through it, and, you know, just in general showing that ROTC is always a program for students to go forward. Next slide, please. The spring musical. I know that our theater department is working very hard for the spring musical this year, and as it says, it's a Little Shop of Horrors. Everybody knows what that one is. It's from the 25th to the 27th, so that's 2 days from now. Obviously at the Trop Auditorium at Brookside Campus at 7. Obviously, if you want to get tickets, the QR code is right there, and you can find it in the social media for the high school and around the school if you have any questions to get those tickets. I think it says the price is at the bottom, but obviously if you want to go support our students and our theater department, please feel free to. Next slide, please. And that is it. As I said, a very short presentation today. Any questions, comments, concerns?
I have a question and a concern, or a comment and a concern.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Hinojosa, for amplifying all of the wonderful events that are happening inside the schools and after school hours. I really appreciate you taking a step forward with Principal Hill and the team. I'm pretty sure maybe it was Evonda Fulton who helped out trying to map out supports for existing Schuler scholars. And I do want to say that students should be very mindful when they're taking photos, like in front of the tank and things like that, because that can appear very almost demeaning to some of our service members, but also people who experience violence by military forces in other countries. So I just wanted to cushion that, and I know it's very exciting, and I want our students to have as many options as possible, but you know, to not take that so lightly. And thank you for highlighting the musical as well, because I plan to attend, and I think it's going to be really fun.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Yes, Ms. Lansing?
Yeah, I'm a little sad that I missed drill down. I didn't know when it was, and I just checked my email. I was like, oh, did I miss an email? So I'm a little sad about that, but I'm glad it was a great event. And I'm as well excited about Little Shop of Horrors. This is a well-recognized film. I believe it was nominated for 2 Oscars, and there's going to be a showing at Genesee in August. So I think this would be great for people in the community to come see, support our students, do an amazing job, and then if they want, follow up at Genesee. But that's exciting. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you so much. And I think that's all the questions. Then I reserve the balance of my time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hinojosa. Up now we have our spotlight on 60.
My name is Marisol Roman. My name is Layla Gretel. My name is Lisa J. Marie.
The event is called The Amazing Shake. It was an idea that we picked up from the Ron Clark Academy that we attended a couple years ago for a PD. I started the program about 6 years ago, knowing that we had very promising students here in Waukegan.
I wanted to try my best and show that I can overcome my fear, and I want everyone else to do it.
And it was a great experience. All of the students came well prepared. They had practiced doing handshakes and speaking with others with confidence and poise. And it's such an important skill that not only helps them for their future with engaging with new people, but also making new friends as well.
I see myself giving great handshakes better than now and getting good jobs because of how I learned how to speak in ambassadors and how I learned to give good handshakes.
I never felt like there was really a spotlight on our wonderful students here. We have such wonderful student leaders that I thought it was important to start a program like the Ambassador Club.
So I think it's a great opportunity for them to practice these skills that they're going to be using for a lifetime. The kids were amazing. I can't say that enough. They were really engaging, and I'm really proud of all of the hard work they did.
My experience was amazing. I was a little bit nervous at first, but once I got to do it and I met the people, they were awesome, and my nervousness went away.
Why is education important?
Because it helps you learn better and it makes your brain more smarter and for school too.
We really appreciate the community members that attended today. We had a board member here today. We had our district leaders that showed up for the event. Really meant a lot to our students to see that our village works together and believes in our students and their bright future. So a big shout out to our village here in Waukegan for always standing tall and reaching out to our kids. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that spotlight on 60. We love to see our students acting as ambassadors for their school and for their community. Coming up, we have opportunity for public comment. So if you bring the comment sheet up at this time. As a reminder, individuals, when I call your names, please come up to the microphone. I'll call 3 names at a time. Please line up so we can expedite the process. Each speaker gets 3 minutes. If you need translation services will be provided for you, and you'll get 6 minutes. We do want to remind all our speakers of civility and remind you to refrain from mentioning student or staff member names in your remarks. First name is Chester. And then the next 2 names on the list are Luz Granda and Javier Granda, in that order. Whenever you're ready, Chester.
Okay, Karen, we'd like to know why is all the waste going on in a district? When I got the thing with 2 boys and a female, why was that not distributed around the district? As far as I know, it wasn't. Another thing too is when I found out this was going on, somebody told me that a board member went inside the bin and took pictures. So I called that board member to send me the pictures, but she didn't. So we know why she did not do it. So that's about it.
Thank you, Chester. Next name is Luz Granda. And Luz, are you going to be using translation services? All right, then we can make sure that 6 minutes is on the clock. All right, whenever you're ready, Ms. Granda.
Buenas noches.
Good evening.
Soy un padre, creo que todos ya me conocen, que soy un padre que se involucra mucho en la educación de mis hijos.
I'm a parent that I think you know that I'm very involved in my children's education.
Creo que la mayoría de los administradores del distrito me conocen,
I think the majority of the administrators here in the district know who I am,
sobre todo la superintendente.
especially the superintendent.
Ella sabe que desde el primer día que llegó ella yo le dije que para mí la educación era muy importante.
So ever since I met her, I told her that my children's education is very important.
Y creo que la mayoría de los administradores a los que les he llevado mis problemas siempre se dan cuenta que son problemas en cuanto a la educación académica de mis hijos.
And I think whenever I bring any issues or problems to the administrators that I speak with, they notice that the issues that I bring up are related to the academic success of my children.
Y creo que soy uno de los padres que siempre he pedido más educación, que mis hijos exploten al máximo su potencial académico.
So I think I'm one of the parents that have asked for more education for my children so my children can reach their maximum potential.
Mi hijo está por graduarse de la escuela John Lewis.
And my son is soon to graduate from John Lewis.
Y creo que voy a dejar esa escuela, no voy a volver más.
And I'm going to be leaving that school. I'm not going to go back there again.
Pero esta noche yo quiero agradecer a la señora Tanasapolo.
But tonight I do want to thank Ms. Tanasapolo, sorry.
Esta maestra siempre estuvo ahí cuando yo la llamé.
This teacher has always been there for me whenever I asked to meet with her.
Incluso le pedí que desafiara a mi hijo académicamente.
Actually, I asked her to challenge my son academically.
Más de lo que el currículo del Distrito 60 pide.
More than what the school District 60 requires or asks of the students.
Y ella siempre estuvo ahí para ayudarme con mi estudiante que ahora está en el grado 10.
And she has always been there to help with my student who is now in 10th grade.
También con mi estudiante el año pasado estuvo dándole en el grado 7.
And with my student, she was also helping him when he was in 7th grade.
Y esta maestra también siempre me ayudó con mi estudiante.
And this teacher, she has always helped me with my student.
Ella es de los maestros que cuando yo mando un email, ella inmediatamente me contesta.
She's one of those teachers that when I send her an email, she immediately responds back.
Hay maestros en la escuela que nunca yo tuve esa contestación y la ayuda en el momento que yo la necesitaba.
Because there were other teachers where I didn't have that quick reply or response when I asked of them.
Pero ella sí lo hizo.
But she always did.
Yo estoy muy agradecida con ella
I am very appreciative of her.
y creo que maestros como ella
And I think teachers like her,
debemos de pedir los padres en este distrito.
that the parents in this district should be asking for.
Maestros como ella son los que valen la pena tener. Hay muchos maestros que son como ella,
Teachers like her are very valuable. There are many other teachers that are just like her.
pero yo en esta noche, delante de todos ustedes, yo le agradezco a la maestra
But tonight, in front of all of you, I want to thank the teacher.
Muchas gracias por toda la ayuda que le dio a mis hijos mientras están en John Lewis.
To thank her for helping my students when they were at John Lewis.
Y sí me gustaría que ustedes, como miembros de la mesa,
And I would like for all of you as members of the board
reconozcan a este tipo de maestros.
to recognize these types of teachers.
Estos tipos de maestros son los que deberíamos de retener en el distrito.
These are the types of teachers that we should try and retain in the schools.
Muchas gracias. Buenas noches.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you, Ms. Granda. Next name on the list is Javier Granda. And whenever you start speaking, Mr. Granda, your time will begin.
Hello, my name is Javier Granda. I'm a current sophomore at Joaquin High School. Some of you guys know me, some don't. But I just want to say thank you to Miss A, my former 8th grade teacher. She helped me a lot during 8th grade, and some of the things she taught me during 8th grade, I didn't know what they were, honestly. But as I went on into high school, I realized that I needed more of those. And we need more teachers like her. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Granda. This concludes our public comment. There was one takeaway request for additional information, I assume, from Mr. Chester, so Superintendent, if you can follow up with that. Next up is our consent agenda. So these items have been placed on there, should be previously discussed and or non-controversial. Any board members can vote on any item separately. If you'd like to vote on any of the items separately at this time, I would like you to let me know the letter number, a letter. There's some there. Do you want to vote on those separately?
Would this be a proper time to comment on any of these?
No.
Not, okay.
Because if we're doing something.
It's a consent agenda, so if we are voting for them, we're voting for the entire consent,
Okay.
unless we are pulling any items out. So I don't have a motion. I'm trying to allow for Ms. Hannah time to see if there's anything that she likes separated.
Yeah, I have an issue regarding all of those contracts.
So P through you.
He threw. S R Q E.
There's 5 of them, yeah.
I went backwards, but
So a motion to approve everything with the exception of items P, Q, R, and S.
And T is a contract, too.
I don't know if that's one that she wants withheld. I'm not going. Do we have a motion?
that is
I motion.
Motion by Ms. Gonzalez.
Second,
Second by Mr. Riddle. And that the motion was approval of everything except for P, Q, R, and S. Do we have, I got a motion and a second. Any comments or questions on the motion? And these are related to everything except for those items.
Right. I'd just make a quick comment on 10I, that summer literacy supplemental support. I just think that's a great idea with our Spanish literacy quality books that we're buying. High interest. I think, you know, this is for the summer program. I think it's really important. And I am so glad to see that there, they're going to be encouraging parents and the children to read some of these books, you know, at home as well. And we know that when parents are involved, kids thrive in school. So I think it's just a great, there's many great things that we're doing with their buying, but this is a great material that we're doing there. And then also the 10M, the Edmonton renewal, Edmentum renewal, that's for credit recovery. I saw that we had 1,074 credits were earned last year. So I'm glad to see that, you know, we're doing that, you know, providing children a chance to recover credits. So that's a good buy as well that we're doing, and I just want to encourage the district to continue to do such stuff. Thank you.
And I got one question,
Yes.
to say. And in reference to the Edmentum,
Yes.
I would, it is a good program for the students to recover their credits. However, I hope that we are looking forward in kind of reducing the number of students that needs to use Edmentum.
Edmentum, yes.
Yes, and that would be the great thing.
I agree with you, Ms. Hannah. I think that's really important. That you know, it is costly. It's about $166 a credit when you divide by what it's costing us. But still, it's students that are going to graduate, and many of those have already graduated. So I think it's great that we're offering that for students who, you know, change course and really need that program.
Right.
Thank you.
Ms. Lindsay?
So I just have a comment on A, which is our school improvement plans, or SIPs or SIPs. So there is, from my perspective, a disparity of funds being requested by the different schools. I had a concern with it last year before I was on the board. You know, for example, Benny is asking for $300,000 for their budget, and then Smith has really great goals attached to the reasoning behind their costs, but that's a vast difference at, I believe it's 1.8. So I really hope that we are taking the principals' requests seriously, and that they are putting through what they truly need at their school, and discussions are being had around that. So that's more of a comment. And then with regard to T and U, I just have a clarifying question. So as these are contracts, I do see we have Dr. Bublitz in the audience, or Superintendent, if you're able to answer. Are these contracts being maintained or managed through stepping stones where there's that percentage fee attached to them, or are those separate?
Ms. Lindsay, and I will let Dr. Bublitz answer that.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Board, Superintendent, Community. These are not managed through the Stepping Stones vendor management, and so this is just an opportunity for us, again, to be more proactive and have more options and to get services and pricing and procurement and such.
Okay, and I know Ms. Hannah had pulled out a couple of the other contracts, and this just ties back into it because these two are still there. I still have concerns that when we have our head of HR going to international locations and hiring for some of these positions that we now have contracts for, I just want to make sure we're being mindful of our district's budgets. I understand we need the positions, I understand these kids need the services, and we need individuals to do so, but I would like to see a more strategic plan of, instead of using Band-Aids to cover ourselves, to very proactively, not just ahead of next year, but have a long-term plan of how we are going to transition from these contracts to having more in-district employees. I believe the union would prefer that as well as some of our other district staff. So I would like a strategic way on how we can get to that point. I understand we're not there and that these services are needed, but we need to have a clear way on how we're going to get to our end goal.
Correct, and as I highlighted last week, the DL department, we have directed our staff to make at minimum 2 contacts or events to go to job fairs, universities, and have partnerships with universities, work through Handshake. And we have, I don't have my sheet with me today, but we have hired on some social workers, I believe some psychs, and I believe we have an OT.
Yeah, based on
several
last
speech
week's
paths.
meeting, I apologize.
Yeah.
I just have the
No,
numbers.
that's okay.
If
I
that's
think it's
supportive.
good to clarify that we're doing that.
Yeah, so last week you had noted that there were 4 district hires for SLPs, 2 contract hires for SLPs, with more interviews coming for a goal of 12. For social workers, I believe Dr. Neeson, or Mr. Neeson, I apologize. 1 social worker was hired for this year and 5 for next year, and then there were 2 interviews last week, so hopefully those went well. And then for psychs, Dr. Jenkins had brought on 4, and for OTPT, 1 district, 1 contract. So again, the goal is to reduce the amount of contracts so we can funnel those funds towards more student supports instead of enticing people to come and be in our district.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Publix. Roll call vote.
Mr. McBride.
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Mr. Riddle.
Yes.
Ms. Hannah.
Yes.
Ms. Lunding.
Yes.
President Ewing.
Yes, I'll read those into the record. Item 10A, approval of school improvement plans for 24-25 school year. B, additional materials for Amplify CKLF, Caminos, monolingual and dual language teachers K through 5. C, Brain Pop as supplemental resource for science, social studies, ELA, SLA, ESL grades K through 8. D, approve renewal of Power School for 24-25 school year. E, approval renewal of partnership with the Network for College Success 24-25. F, approval of purchase STEM materials. G, approval of the purchase STEM materials Bureau. H, renewal of APARA. I, summer literacy supplemental support. J, purchase of ESL materials for Brookside campus. K, purchase of ESL materials for Washington campus. L, Waukegan High School counselors professional development request. M, Waukegan High School and AOEC at mental renewal. N, faith law curriculum. O, MS AMLE leadership conference. And then we are at T, bilingual therapy staffing contract. U, renewal of bilingual speech and language evaluator contract for Colleen Michaels. V, renewal.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
V, renewal of Gold Book Toolkit. W, renewal of Embrace Education IEP writing. X, approval of IAASE reimbursement. Y, renewal of Remind. Z, approval of renewal yearly Microsoft Office year licensing. And AA, renewal of File Wave yearly contract. Now there are 3 motions, P, Q, R, and S. Is anyone opposed to us taking those as one item? I'd like a motion to approve items P, Q, R, and S.
So moved.
Motion by Mr.
Second.
Riddle, second by Ms. Gonzalez. Any comments or questions on the motion?
These are just the contracts, and actually, Mrs. Lindsay stated what I was actually going to say about the contracts, but she said it very well. So,
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. And to reiterate that point, is these are contracts. We appreciate the proactive approach with which is being taken. I think what we can be coming back, or a recommendation, Superintendent, is just more frequent updates from our Human Resources Department as to how we are continually to fill these positions, especially with some of our recruiting efforts. With that, I'd like we have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Mr. McBride.
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Mr. Riddle.
Yes.
Miss Hannah.
No.
Ms. Lensing.
As Dr. Nault stated last week, we do need to find solutions to service the students who need the services. Again, I'm not a fan of contracts, but we do need to address the immediate problem. And I will restate, we need a long-term approach to close that gap. Oh, I apologize. Thank you. Yes.
President Ewing.
Yes, item approved, motion carries. We are now at our second set of, thank you, Mr. White, P, Maximum Healthcare Staffing Services, Inc. contract, Q, ampersand therapy contract, R, Aya Healthcare, Inc. contract, and S, Epic Special Education Staffing contract. We're now at the consent agenda for operations. Items have been presented, items A through E. Would any individuals like to vote on any item separately? If not, motion to approve items 11A through E.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Riddle, second by Ms. Gonzalez. Any comments or questions on the motion?
Just a quick comment on 11A. I think just want to say kudos to John Lewis and their staff for organizing 2 great trips for our students. One to
Can you use
Costa
the mic, Mr. Riddle? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'd like to say kudos to the staff of John Lewis for organizing 2 great trips for students, one to Costa Rica and one to Paris and Barcelona. I think experiential learning is something very, very important, and I'm glad to see we're making this available to Waukegan students with these 2 outstanding trips. So thank you, John Lewis staff.
And to nuance it a little bit, I had stated in our last meeting as well when we were reviewing this, yes, kudos to the staff, but to also make sure that there are domestic trips that we make available to all students, because these are some of the experiences that can sometimes make families aware or students aware of their family's status in the country. So we don't want any student to feel excluded. But they are really great trips, and I agree with Mr. Riddle as well that traveling is a really, really beneficial thing.
I just want to call out item 11C, updated impact fee schedule. So impact fees means that there is construction happening in Waukegan, so we want to see more of those. Roll call.
Mr. McBride.
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Mr. Riddle.
Yes.
Ms. Hannah.
Yes.
Ms. Lensing.
Yes.
President Ewing.
Yes, item approved, motion carries. Item 11A, Lewis MS International Trips. B, approval of revised quote for furniture purchase for Jack Benny Middle School student and desk. C, approval of updated impact fee schedule. D, approval of bid for Washington campus retaining wall and exterior concrete work. E, approval of bid for AOC window replacement. Item 12A, purchases and contracts. Approval of Wraparound Center Services, subaward approvals.
It is recommended that the Board of Education, relative to grant funds that districts have received or will receive from ICESA for social services associated with the Wraparound Center, authorizes the superintendent to enter into a sub-grant agreement with A Safe Place for the provisions of domestic violence, sexual abuse, physical abuse, services by appointment only, and a sub-grant agreement with the Community Youth Network for the provisions of generalized counseling, crisis intervention, and emotional and mental health services by appointment only, in accord with the budgetary information approved by ICESA.
So moved.
Motion by
Second.
Ms. Hannah, second by Ms. Gonzalez. Any comments or questions on the motion? Only thing I will highlight is I appreciate the hard work of multiple teams. This has been an ongoing process now for almost since, I don't know if it was 2020 or 2021, Ms. Polk, where we drove down to Peoria, but 2020, I thought so too. So it's been a 4-year journey and process, and we're glad to see this start to take shape and come to fruition. So congratulations to all of those who have been involved with making it happen. Roll call.
Mr. McBride.
Yes.
Ms. Fabian. Ms. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Mr. Riddle.
Yes.
Ms. Hannah.
Yes.
Ms. Lensing.
Yes.
President Ewing.
Yes, I'm approved. Motion carries. We are now at item 13A for personnel, 423-2024.
It is the recommendation that the Board of Education accept the administration's recommendation to approve the appointments, retirements, retirement extensions, and accept the resignations as found on schedules F1002, L949, and G660.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Riddle,
Second.
second by Ms. Gonzalez. Any comments, questions to the motion?
Yeah, we're losing some very valued staff to retirement. And they will sorely be missed, and I just want to congratulate them on their retirement and wish them good luck.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. Roll call.
Mr. McBride.
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Mr. Riddle.
Yes.
Ms. Hannah.
Yes.
Ms. Lensing.
Yes.
President Ewing.
Yes, item approved, motion carries. We have one administrative appointment we'd like to highlight at this time.
At this time, I'd like to acknowledge Ms. Maricia Bannister Robinson, who previously served as a culture and climate specialist at the Washington campus. She will now serve as an interim educational safety specialist with a starting salary of $66,915.91. Congratulations, Ms. Robinson, who is also a Waukegan alumni. I'm going to say that again, who's also a Waukegan alumni.
Walk down.
Great job.
Congratulations. All right, we are now at item 13B, authorization to issue a notice to remedy tenured teacher.
It is the recommendation that the Board of Education issue a warning letter to tenured teacher concerning charges that are considered remediable and require the employee to remediate such behaviors in order to avoid dismissal pursuant to 105 ILCS 24-12D.
Do we have a motion?
I motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. Gonzalez,
Second.
second by Ms. Lensing. Any comments or questions on the motion? Roll call vote.
Mr. McBride.
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Mr. Riddle.
No.
Ms. Hannah.
No.
Ms. Lensing.
Unfortunately, yes.
President Ewing.
Yes, item approved, motion carries.
For the record, this matter involves Ms. Helen Athanasopoulos.
Thank you. We are now at our financial reports. So we are at item 16A. Are there any questions is anybody opposed to taking these two items together? So a motion to approve items 16A and B.
What is she?
I motion to approve.
So, please, thank you. All right, item 16A and B. Ms. Granda, now the opportunity we had public comment. Thank you. Item 16A and B.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Gonzalez and second by Mr. Riddle. If you could read both recommended action, Superintendent.
It is the recommendation of the administration, the Board of Education ratify the 2nd April 2024 processing board bills, manual check request payments, and no national bank insurance payments for the period of April 3rd, 2024 through April 16, 2024. The accounts payable board payments for the period of April 3rd, 2024 through April 16, 2024 total $3,077,996.26. The manual check request payments for the period of April 3rd, 2024 through April 16, 2024 total $2,562,122.79.
Superintendent.
Did I miss some line?
No, and then total $0, right? So Ms. Hannah would still like to have these voted on separately, so would you all withdraw your motion?
I withdraw my motion.
I would second that. Withdraw mine.
And now I'd like a motion to approve item 16A as previously read by the superintendent.
Motion to
Motion
approve
by Ms. Gonzalez.
item A.
Mr. Riddle, second.
Second by Mr. Riddle. The superintendent already read the recommended action. Any comments or questions on the motion? Roll call vote.
Mr. McBride.
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Mr. Riddle.
Yes.
Ms. Hannah.
Pass.
Ms. Lensing.
Yes.
President Ewing.
Yes, item approved, motion carries. Item 16B, resolution of intent to issue not to exceed $30 million of working cash fund bonds of the district.
It is the recommendation that the Board of Education adopt a resolution of intent to issue working cash bonds in the amount not to exceed $30 million to pay for capital improvements.
I motion to approve. the
Motion by
recommendation.
Ms.
Okay.
Gonzalez,
Second.
second by Mr. Riddle. Any comments, questions on the motion?
Yes, I have a question. I'm not going to support this because what this does, it adds debt, long-term debt, onto our school district, and I understand that we have been gradually paying down our debt. However, to me, it's like you paying it down, but then you're going to add some more, and then the debt, long-term debt, is still going to be there. So I guess this is for capital improvements, and I understand that we need to do a number of things for our infrastructure. However, I am not in favor of adding more long-term debt to the school district.
Board President, board members, superintendent, community members. For this reason, we have our distinguished guest, Mr. Kyle Harding, who is a part of Chapman and Cutler, and we also had a pre-recorded message from Elizabeth Hennessy from Raymond James, who is our financial advisor. And we're available to answer whatever questions you have. If you would give us the opportunity to play Ms. Hennessy's message. And then also for legal advisement, Mr. Kyle Harding is here. And then we're also here to answer any additional questions you may have.
Good evening. Elizabeth Hennessy here from Raymond James. I'm here tonight to go through a brief presentation on the issuance of working cash bonds. We're going to start with a market update, looking at the average municipal market data index interest rates now versus where they've been historically. What we have here is a graphic where we have the maturity on the x-axis going out to 30 years, and we've got the yield or interest rate on the y-axis. And you can see this dark line is the average for each point on the yield curve for each of those 30 years. The red line is where we are today with interest rates as of April 12th. And you can see the short-term rates are higher than the average up to year 5. But then years 6 through 30, the current interest rates are much lower than they have been on average over 30 years. The next slide shows how interest rates have decreased since November 1 of 23. So you can see on each point of the yield curve that the interest rates have gone down anywhere from 35 basis points to almost 1%. So the market is really in much better shape than where we were in the fall of 23. Here we're looking at the district's statutory debt limit. The Illinois statutes determine how much debt you can issue. So overall, your debt limit is $140,405,320. And for the issuance of non-referendum working cash bonds, that limit is $154,314,945. The non-referendum financing options the district has for working cash bonds are limited by the district's debt service extension base. In 1994, they amended the tax cap law to allow school districts to issue bonds without referendum as long as the payments did not exceed what the 1994 levy was for non-referendum bonds. And then in 2009, they added a CPI factor to increase that amount annually. So right now, for 24 levy year, your debt service extension base is just under $5 million, and that's the amount of payments you can make each year. So these working cash bonds are very flexible. They can be used for capital or for operating, but because we're issuing them on a tax-exempt basis, they can only be used to pay for capital expenditures. And the capital expenditures must occur over the next 3 years, with 5% spent in the next 6 months. These limited bonds or working cash bonds do not negatively impact the operating funds. They're paid through the bond and interest tax levy, and they're paid off very quickly. So here's the current debt outstanding that's payable from this debt service extension base. If we start on the left-hand side, we see the equalized assessed value, most recently for 2022 levy year. Then we've got the debt service extension base, which I mentioned in the year 24 is being impacted by CPI of 3.4%. So that is at $4,928,670. Then we have 4 bond issues outstanding being paid from those funds: the 2010A, the 15A, Series 2015B, and the Series 2017. So this debt is paid off in the next 6 years. The annual payments total about $4 million, and then the difference between that annual payment of $4 million and the debt service extension base of $4,928,000 is dollars you can use to pay on the issuance of a new non-referendum working cash bond. So you see in 24 levy year, it starts at $925,000, and then it increases steadily until this debt is completely paid off. So this is the total debt service the district has outstanding right now, very, very low. All referendum bonds have been retired in earlier years. Here's a graphic that shows this red line is the debt service extension base, and these blue bars represent the annual payments that you have outstanding currently. So if we're looking at issuing $30 million of working cash fund bonds for capital projects to take the pressure off the operating funds, we would go ahead and issue those here in 2024, and we would pay them off within the next 11 years. So the payments are shown in this orange box. The total payments, including the $4 million outstanding, is shown in the pink box, and the remaining debt service extension base capacity is shown in the light green box. You see, we pay these bonds off so that the total debt service is very level, just under $5 million. This means future boards will have the opportunity to issue more bonds if needed in 27 or 28. Because this is a slight increase, it is an 8-cent increase on the property tax rate, which is on a $205,000 home, $48.64. So relatively very low impact. The interest rate on this bond that we're estimating right now is 4.1%, but that includes a cushion of 50 basis points. So if you were to issue this bond today, the interest rate would be 3.6%. So that's a nice low interest rate, but as usual, we're always conservative when we estimate interest rates on new issues. So here's a graphic with the repayment of 30 million working cash bonds. You can see it impacts levy year 24, and then it's paid off in a level way so that the total payments are about $5 million a year. And then the district and future boards have room to issue more debt as soon as 2028 and 2029, if needed. So, in order to issue the 30 million working cash bonds, the board needs to take several legal actions. Tonight on your agenda, you're considering the approval of the resolution of intent to issue 30 million of working cash bonds. Kyle Harding from Chapman and Cutler is here to answer any questions, legal questions on that resolution. Assuming that all goes well, we would publish that notice on April 28th both in the English and Spanish-speaking newspapers, starting a petition period. At your regular meeting on May 28th, you would hold a public hearing on the issue of working cash bond. Then we would start with the preparation of the offering documents, hold a bond rating meeting, have a due diligence call, and then the board would consider the approval of a parameters bond resolution authorizing the issuance of 30 million working cash fund bonds, and that would be subject to the approval of the Associate Superintendent of Business and Financial Services and the board president. That sale would happen the very next day, Wednesday, June 26th, if market conditions are appropriate. If not, we have the opportunity to hold off and wait till things calm down in the bond market. But we anticipate at that time there would not be any large economic indications coming out, so it would probably be a good time to sell the bonds. Then we would close the issue in mid-July. At that point, the district would receive its 30 million of working cash fund proceeds and be able to move forward with scheduling its capital projects over the next 3 years. So tonight, the board is just authorizing the issuance of up to 30 million, a public hearing on May 28th board meeting, and then final action to authorize the sale of the bonds on June 25th. Thanks for your time tonight.
Mr. President, Superintendent, members of the board, again, Kyle Harding from Chapman & Cutler. Appreciate the opportunity to meet with you again tonight. I think Elizabeth's presentation really laid it out there. I guess what I would highlight for you again is that this is the first of 3 required actions. So it's a necessary condition, but it's not sufficient. It authorizes you to start this process, but there'd be additional board action in order to move forward. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have on the presentation or on the resolution, which we prepared.
I have a question.
Ms. Gonzalez, Ms. Lindsay.
So what I understood from the presenter was that we have to spend 5% of the issued bond within the first 6 months. As part of that preliminary documentation, would it be a schedule of that 5% investment that we'd be making? Or how granular can we be so that the community knows what our timeline is for the money used?
Let me answer that first from a tax perspective. So
okay.
The IRS allows the district to borrow on a tax-exempt basis when the proceeds of the bonds will be used for long-term capital. Mm-hmm. So all things being equal, your interest rates would be lower than if you were borrowing for operations. So it's a subsidy from the IRS. Mm-hmm. But it comes with certain strings attached to it. One is that they don't want you to try to time the market. They see this as burdening. They want an efficient market. So they say you need to wait to sell bonds until you reasonably expect that you'll be able to spend all the money within 3 years. And also, you need to reasonably expect that you'll be under contract to spend 5% within 6 months. So those are the general tax rules that we will ask for representations as of closing. We've said several times in this presentation that these are working cash fund bonds, but the district's issuing them for capital projects.
Right.
Working cash fund bonds under state law at closing, when the bonds are issued, go into the working cash fund. But the school code gives the district, the board, the authority to transfer those proceeds from the working cash fund to the capital projects fund, where they would be used for capital improvements.
And in relation, Ms. Paul.
We have a number of projects currently scheduled, one being $10 million over at the high school for the roof. So we know that we more than likely will have more than $1.5 million in payments within 6 months. We also just approved a retaining wall at the high school, and that's over $1 million. So we know that there's about $20 million in projects that's scheduled to be paid between now and the end of next year. And we've been budgeting about $30 million each year for capital improvements. One thing I want to point out that Elizabeth said in her presentation is that we only had about $17 million in outstanding bonds because we paid off a lot of those referendum bonds. And also, if you remember, a number of years ago, we refinanced so that we would bring the balloon down and making those payments. And so we've done a great job with the help of Elizabeth and Mr. Kyle Harding and our bond actions, coupled with the fact that not going out for bonds and spending in excess of $80 million in capital improvement by request of the board and the superintendent. So that's what the board has been able to do over the past couple of years, coupled with the superintendent not increasing taxes. We just presented last week where we lost $2 million, right? That's going to go on and on and on and on because we lost that in our base. So you all have done an exceptional job with debt. And so right now we're at the point that we have to go out for monies to pay for outstanding capital improvements that exist.
In as basic a terms, in order to, it's unsustainable, right? In the fears if we don't take this action, right? Is the alternative is to cut our way to 30 million. And if you remind me, Ms. Polk, what percentage of our budget is salaries?
It's about between 71 to 80% of our budget is salary and benefits compensation.
So there's not a lot to give, is what you are saying.
Absolutely.
So it is the estimation of the finance department as our CFO that this is the correct action that you would advise the board to take from a fiscally responsible standpoint.
With the approval of the superintendent, it is a strong recommendation to the board that we take this action.
Board President.
I'm sorry, Ms. Lindsay had a question. I jumped in there, and then I'll come back to you, Mr. Renner.
I do want to clarify, it was the board that requested not to increase taxes, right? So in the language of a superintendent,
Absolutely.
the board had requested that.
The board requested it.
Yep.
Then I consulted with the superintendent and she agreed. Yes.
Right. Just want to make sure that's
Yes.
clear for the community.
Yes.
And then one of my questions was tied to what Mr. Ewing had just asked about the impact of not approving. So then I guess I have a little bit more technical questions, and it ties back to Ms. Gonzalez's point of the granularity in which we utilize these funds, right? Because I think the concern is on the community's part, are we being fiscally responsible with the funds that we are taking such actions with? And so it sounds like that's going to be in the meetings ahead on the full, that's going to be included in future meetings, the full breakdown. Is that accurate?
Yes, that is accurate. With the Capital Development Committee, there's a list of projects that is discussed at that time, and that's infused in our budget process. But one of the things that if I have the liberty of mentioning to the board over the last couple of years, I've said that we would come to a point where there would be a cliff, right? Because we no longer have ESSER money. We got in excess of $80 million overall in ESSER money, 54 million of which was ESSER 3. So that money's gone. So we have to adjust. We've used the money for capital. We had 18 million the board let us put into capital. We put local money to subsidize that. Now we're at a point we have to prioritize. If there's still life safety projects that exist, we have to pay for them, but we still have to operate as an organization. And so that's why we worked with Ms. Elizabeth Hennessy. We consulted with Mr. Kyle Harding and also internal counsel about how we should tackle this. And I believe that this is the best way for the district to tackle the needs of capital as well as to preserve operating funds.
And valid points. Sorry, I just have one more thing. Because you brought up ESSER funding, And help me understand, because from the meeting, I thought we were using ESSER funding for the $10 million roof. Is that not? So I'm misremembering what happened.
Yes.
Because we did move from working cash then to pay for the 10 million roof. Can you just recap?
Yes.
For me
What we said was that the ESSER funds were already used.
Okay.
And so we used the ESSER funds to preserve positions that are instructionally based. I think that's what we said. And so those monies reimbursed us for expenses that had been expensed in '23. And what we did, we came to the board and we got the roof approved. We didn't necessarily say exactly which monies would be used for that, but we knew that it would be capital projects. So when we got the opportunity to look at all of the needs of the district, we realized that there was a need for us to go out for additional bond, working cash bond, and that's why we're requesting this.
Okay, and so at that time, was it the intent to go out for a working cash bond to address the 10 million before lining everything up to get to the 30?
I can't say at that time that we envisioned that we would do it, but I knew eventually that we would.
Okay.
Because it's no way that we could do $100 million in capital projects, not raise the taxes, and then lose ESSER money. It's not even possible.
Understood. Okay, I just wanted clarification around that. I appreciate that, Ms. Pope.
Mr. Riddle is next, and then her.
Two real quick questions here. One, if I understood correctly, our bond debt would be paid off in 6 years. Our current bond debt, was it 6 years? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's correct, yeah.
And then this bond issue would be paid off in 11 years? That's correct. Okay, so that's good. And what's the interest rate on this? Was it I've heard that number, 4.1? Was that correct?
It was like 3.5.
That's what she used in her presentation. That included a 0.5% buffer, given the fact that market volatility.
Why is that so low? That seems low with what, I would have to go out if I wanted to borrow money right now. Anybody buying a house can't get 4.1 anymore.
So that's why we say yes, Mr. Riddle.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
So I just
We
don't
saw the
understand.
graph go down.
Was there something the government is doing for us? Are they giving, I heard something about somebody who's giving us a special deal on this. Is that what it was? No, why are we getting such a low bond rate right now?
Because municipal debt, school district debt that's secured by the taxpayers is a very strong, reliable investment. So
Okay.
investors are
Okay.
fighting for that investment.
Okay, so that's, all right, so it sounds good. I'm just wanting to make sure that what I'm hearing is correct. So it sounds like a good deal, and that we have to do it, and we have to have operating cash, and this is gonna let us keep some operating cash and use this for capital. And all of it has to be used for capital, so that's correct too, I understood that.
Right,
Correct.
yep. We're
Okay,
borrowing
and
on a
we
tax
have,
exempt basis.
and Ms. Polk, do we have enough projects, or maybe that's a Mr. Moten question? Enough, I'm sure
have
he
a
does,
lot of
he's
projects.
smiling. We have
We have
plenty
a
of
lot of
projects out
projects.
there where we can
We-
easily spend this, so we're gonna prioritize those projects, because I think we've got something like 80 that we could spend, and we're just gonna use this very cautiously. But of course, that roof is being done, so, all right, that sounds fine, thank you. That's all my
I
questions.
had
Ms. Hannah and then Ms. Gonzalez.
Okay.
Okay, I heard everything that everyone said, and I understand it. I've been through this before. But because we don't have the income anymore, because ESSER is gone, right? And during ESSER, there was a lot of spending going on. And so I am saying that I understand we're going to do the bonds, but we also need to be doing some spending reductions in the district other than our personnel, because we need them, and programs and stuff for our kids. We need them, but the reduction needs to come from travel, needs to come from the absorbent amount of money that we are spending on outside food, catering, all of that, okay? So we need to get creative, because after when the money's gone, well, the money is gone, the ESSER money is gone, then if we continue to spend, and if you all notice, I pass on the approving the bills, right? Because there's a lot of spending in there that I don't agree with. And so, I guess we have to do this, but look, I pride myself in knowing that that previous administrations worked very, 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 very hard to pull us out of a debt that a deficit position in our school district for over 16 years, and I'm not willing to teeter back into that position. Okay, and so we need to look at our spending that's going on in the district and curb that and spend money on what's necessary, our children, our staff. So that's my position, and whether the bonds will probably get passed regardless of my vote. But I still say that we need to get creative, and we need to find other ways to generate money for capital projects. My second question is, does any of this money, these bonds for capital improvement, that's going towards 214 Washington Street?
These monies are not going towards 214 Washington Street.
Right,
It's going towards the projects, likely 10-year life safety
Okay.
Projects.
Right,
Are
because that's
those
been
that are
hanging over our head for the what I mean, the 10-year life safety projects. It's been hanging over.
and
our
there's
head.
another one that's about to occur.
That's right. And so, you know, all of these capital improvement projects, yeah, we're old infrastructure district. Okay, everybody knows that. But I still say we need to do something different in terms of the spending in our school district.
I think we're working together as a team to ensure that we're prioritizing the expenditures. The fund balance as it stands is better than it has been in years. One of the things that we have to keep in mind, and that is that we had large raises across the board, 22%, 21%. That's added to the base of the budget that was in FY23. So it's in 24, and that has to be considered. And it was something that the board wanted to happen. And so when you prioritize salaries, and the board president mentioned that, when you prioritize that, that becomes an expense that has to be considered overall. We can't control how much money we're getting in evidence-based funding. I would hope that we wouldn't be tier 1. I would hope that we would be tier 2, 3, but we're not. We're tier 1. So what does that mean? The state recognizes the fact that we're not getting enough money to educate our students. And so, unfortunate for us, we have to prioritize based upon the monies that we get.
that goes right to what I'm saying.
And the process that we have in the district does exactly that. The schools, the departments, the divisions, everyone submits what the needs are within the district. They're prioritized, and we fund what we can, and those things that are unfunded, we're able to speak to the Board of Education, the community, and the state, if need be, to say that we are not getting the money that we need to do what we're required to do.
Yeah, and only the final comment that I have is that it just I kind of got a little disappointed in the fact that more money from our ESSER 3 funds did not go more to our students. Now, I already know that the semantics about giving it this way and giving it that way, that's one thing. However, we could have redone for the students our wise field. I asked for that, pushed for that, had conversations about that, and it never happened. And we did have the money to be able to do our wise field for our students and make them proud of where they're holding athletic events, and and don't have to be embarrassed and humiliated when visiting schools come into our house, and it's all a hot mess, if you will, just in disrepair, and that should have been on the capital improvement list as a higher priority. And unfortunately, money's gone now, so that I guess we'll have to wait again for another ESSER to get our Wisefield done. We can't have track meets, state competitions because of the track. And we have to think about our children. We're supposed to think about our children.
The budget process is here. I know Ms. Hannah and Ms. Gonzalez sit on the budget committee.
Friday.
Like Ms. Polk says, it's about prioritization. And that's why I go back to be very diligent. It does make sense, Ms. Hannah, to go through everything with a fine-tooth comb. But I want to reaffirm from my personal experience in my career, to see how Ms. Polk in the finance department operates is beyond admirable, and that's why they get recognized in the way that they do. Is because of the prioritization, right? We know that we have more needs than we have money to fund. And so if we are going to cut, we can't cut our way out of it, right? I'm thinking, and I'm just going off the top of my head, but we've been able to put money into things that cost money but benefit students. That resource fair that we do at the beginning of the year ain't free. Those food trucks that show up when we do our events, the supporting local economies, I don't want people in the community to think that people are feasting. Most of that money is going towards staff meals, to support the kids, to have things for the community. And so yes, we have to go through those with a critical eye, but I don't want us to just kind of put a false narrative out that
I'm
we
not
can
putting a false narrative.
I don't want us to put a false narrative out that we can cut our way out of this. We have to make difficult decisions, but we've never had enough money to fund everything that our students need. That's not going to change. We did increase salaries, so when you do a budget, that's the first number you take. And you plug that in there, and then you estimate what you have left. And what our administration is recommending is that we approve this bond, because to Ms. Hannah's point, previous boards have done what was needed to get us to have this opportunity. We have high bond rating, right? So that helps us on the
yes.
interest rate. And so these are all things which make this an ideal time for us to do it while we are not doing it as an emergency, right? We need to do it. We want to make these decisions. Also tackled with Ms. Hannah being fiscally restrained, right? Because we know the economy is doing this. And we know that not only is the district at a cliff, but the state of Illinois is also at a cliff. And so while there's been a commitment to maintain our evidence-based funding, guess what, community? We have never been fully funded. So even today, the money that we get, we want to remain flat. So at least we can plan. But in reality, the state of Illinois committed that we should be getting more, but they don't have the money to give us more. So those are all of the realities that we are facing as a district. So I will shut up. I know there were other things and recommendations, but we have to keep doing things. Our kids are wanting a new high school. We talked about a new track. The plan exists, Ms. Hannah. We can bring it forward. It's up to the board to have to prioritize, but it's not going to be as cheap as we think it is. And to Miss, the superintendent just made a comment in which we were responsible with ESSER funds. There were requirements how that money had to be spent. And so although we looked at it, a field didn't meet that requirement, and we were going to have a hard time justifying it. So I just wanted to.
I don't understand how other people. I hear you, but I'm not understanding how other school districts could use ESSER money to do it, but we couldn't.
I don't think they use ESSER money. I think they use ESSER to pay for things, and then just like Ms. Polk is saying, the funds balance, the money that we didn't use, it didn't disappear yet. ESSER is gone, but because of the responsibility of our finance department, those monies that we would have used for those things that were covered under ESSER, we didn't just spend. We held on to them, right? Because we knew that ESSER wasn't going to last forever. So I want to commend and publicly commend previous boards as well as this board and our administration who has been watching this money, who did not raise taxes, who used the money responsibly. We haven't had to send any money back from ESSER because everything that we spent was approved. Those are all things that we should be celebrating, and that's the story that we should be telling. And when we pass or it goes out and we talk about this $30 million, we should be able to point directly to the things that we need to do because we already know what they are. They're there. They've done the work. So it's not like we're guessing. We're not saying how we're going to spend this $30 million. We're saying these are the projects that we know we need to do, things that are coming up, things that we're legally required to take care of, and we're being proactive, which is what I continue to hear from this board and the community is what we want to do.
I just have one question, Brandon.
Go ahead, Mr. McBride.
The question I have, Ms. Polk, speaking about the budget, from administrative costs versus capital improvement, which one is the highest?
Well, it has to be instructional. It's higher than capital because we've spent each year possibly 20 million, 25 million each year on capital, and we spend far more than that on instruction related support services for instruction.
So I brought the point forward because we're getting ready now. Once again, administrative costs is high, but we're getting ready to now add on more to administrative costs with these going forward with the raises we're going to approve. So I guess I think maybe going forward after we get done with this final study, we need to look at that because. And not just in District 60, I've noticed that funds sometime in a lot of areas go to administrative costs versus in the substance costs of what it should be going for. To Ms. Hannah's point. But I'm just saying going forward, we need to look at administrative costs. That's not for you, that's for the superintendent. I think we need to look at that.
We'll keep our eye on it. And Ms. Hannah, just so you know, it is in our goals to have that field, have a functional field that our kids can be proud of. So the board will be seeing that.
Do we have a timeline?
I can't speak to a timeline, but before, trust me, you're going to see something we're going to be bringing to you.
Gotta have the money to pay for it.
That's, but we.
Miss Gonzalez, were you still waiting?
Well, I think what I was going to mention is that timeline, but more so as it relates to some of the projects that we know that we had already, talked about. And I think, I'm hearing what everyone is saying right now, and I feel like sometimes there needs to be a campaign about all the work that we've been doing and how it's been reaching those classrooms, because I definitely agree with Ms. Hannah that we need some very visible wins in the district, because people could go into a house and think that the roof is okay because it's not caving in, but if you live in a house that has that infrastructure issue, you have to do something about it, and it's not as visible. And we can't, I want to encourage us as board members not to be so persuaded by what's happening in other districts. We don't have those full pictures, but we know what's going on in Waukegan. And we know that sometimes we hear it from teachers, from students, that they are seeing the holes in the walls or the bricks coming down. And I don't want to have to make that choice between a very beautiful field where our students can play games and run track, and the build out of some of our school buildings. But at the same time, you can't learn if you're not in a safe classroom and if you're not walking in a safe hallway. And even just before this conversation, we were talking about some of those life safety concerns that we have. And my question is always like, well, how do we knock it off right now? Because if we keep pushing it off and pushing it off and pushing it off, it's only gonna, the wear and tear is there, but people are gonna exploit it. And so I think that if we, and this is what I would look for, and maybe Friday will be my, it's the first time that I'm appointed on the budget committee, but if we could just have a list of those big wins, and then obviously some of the things that are internally life safety related that we can point to and say, hey, we went out and we're glowing up and we're upgrading the house because we need these things, and this is what we're working on, this is where we're at, then that would be a much more transparent way of communicating to everybody that we're not just taking out money because we're taking out money. We're taking it out because we want to leverage other funds that we are eligible for instead of our own working cash to do things that will benefit our community. And I don't know what that could look like, but I'm all about crossing off stuff on a list and showing that. But maybe that could be a way that we can communicate that better, and it could be in the documentation that we provide in the future forums.
Thank you. And I agree, Ms. Lindsay.
Sorry, just because a couple of things have come up. I got really excited hearing the capital improvement projects, and I was going to pipe up, like, maybe with this money we can do our gymnasiums so we could have everyday PE. But then also taking into consideration the life safety components, Mr. Sabecki is very good about bringing different aspects of what we need to do in our buildings to the podium and communicates with Mr. Moten in that regard. So that is going to chip away at, the 30 million. So I don't know if that's going to be a component of it, but it's something that, I'm looking forward to. And I echo a lot of the same sentiments as the board members have already stated. With regard to Ms. Hannah, and I'll be transparent in this respect and then hold further comment for a later point. But we have to be responsible with those funds. I went into the dumpster, I took pictures, and there was hand sanitizer pallets that were expired. So we're just wanting to make, and we've had people come and talk about the additional supplies that were going unused in different areas or different school supplies. Ms. Hannah's been bringing up, like, are there things that we could be using in storage, etc. So it's just that mindfulness of, if we are purchasing things, are we using them? And if not, that's considered waste when our sanitary products go expired, when hand sanitizer goes expired. So it's very valid to be concerned about that. And so we need to be mindful with that regard in full totality. While we're doing all of this, I still anticipate that our wonderful grant writer, Ms. Tate, is going after every single opportunity possible, hopefully with supports, because that's a big job, I know she can handle it, but to get additional funds to close that gap, to address some of these things that we're not doing with this 30 million or other bonds that we may need to do down the road in the future. So I just wanted to bring up those points as we close this out.
Board President, I think we should call the question. I've seen so much improvement since I've been on the board in capital improvement. We're talking about windows and air handlers and new roofs and desks and furniture and painted buildings, IT, throughout our schools, the Chromebooks. So much improvements in capital, that we've done in capital improvements in the 8 years I've been on the board. And that affects our children every day. As they come in, it affects our staff. We've got the new vestibules, the safety vestibules that have been put in. I mean, just parking lots, all kinds of infrastructure that makes all of our schools look so much better. So I'm certainly supporting this, and I'd like to call the question on this particular issue. I think we talked about it quite a bit. So,
Roll call vote.
Mr. McBride? Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
I pass.
Ms. Lensing?
Yes.
President Ewing?
Yes, item approved, motion carries. As the time check is 8:35, we do have to go back into closed session, but committee reports at this time. So,
Yeah, I got
and Ms.
committee.
Lensing, let me know if this is inappropriate. But I got your email. I forgot to respond, is because I wanted to confirm that the recommendation or request that was coming up was coming. Is it coming from the equity committee, or is it coming from an individual board member? And it doesn't matter. It just helps me understand where it should be
Individual.
placed.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Because it would have to come through. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Ms. Hannah, you said you had some items.
Yeah, I want to just give kudos to our District 60 Literacy Committee. We met, and they're really working hard regarding Miss Quinn, I'll call her.
Miss Norman.
Anyway, she's working hard on putting together field trips for the students from the FACE program. And the only question that I have is regarding our transportation contract, and why wouldn't we put that into our contracts that we have with currently Illinois Central for when our schools want to go on field trips and they need transportation. And I kind of cringed when they said that they were looking into chartering, buses and stuff. And with the amount of funds that we expend for transportation with Illinois Central, our schools shouldn't have to be paying for charter buses to go just on field trips. To me, that's absurd. And there were conversations about different places that were closer than going out into Chicago and stuff where there's a time limit. So they're working hard on that. There's gonna be a multicultural fair at Miguel Juarez. I wrote down Saturday, but I didn't put a date. But I know it's gonna be 11 to 2 Saturday. Superintendent, can you find out which Saturday?
Yes, ma'am.
okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. They're planning for the Great Beginnings, the training. Yeah, I'm excited for the Great Beginnings. Just basically what they were just saying. And there's other things, but for the sake of time and for board president, that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Anna.
Or do I got delegates report?
Do you have a delegates report?
Yeah, I just want to encourage everybody to go on the ISB and to take the take the training class for the Senate Bill 100. I'm still in the process of completing it, but you can start it, take a break, go back to it, because we are all going to have to do that, and we can get ahead of the curve before they mandate it, and you do get points towards your master boardsman certification. Okay. Other than that, I know there's the CUBE conference that's coming up in October, and so make sure you talk with Miss Jasmine, the superintendent, about that. Other than that, Triple I is coming up in November. We got notice for that. Thank you, Jasmine. But other than that, that's it, Mr. President.
Thank you. Superintendent's report.
Yes, good evening, everyone. First, I want to take this moment to congratulate Whittier for the first authorized IB school in Lake County currently. I want to acknowledge Principal Kramer and his staff for all the hard work, but I'd be really remiss if I did not acknowledge Jennifer Rice Dela Sanchez, who started the process there when she was the principal of Whittier, and thankful that Mr. Kramer just picked up that baton and kept it moving. I also want to acknowledge our board member, Rick Riddle, who has been a proponent for the International Baccalaureate School philosophy and has helped IB. This was a conversation we had when I was interviewing with Waukegan Public Schools about bringing programs such as these here to our district. And so we have our first authorized IB school. So congratulations, Whittier.
Yay.
Tonight, I'm going to have Ms. Avonda Fulton and Ms. Amanda Nault discuss another great opportunity that we can bring to Waukegan Public Schools, and it's called the Gear Up program. When I was a principal in the city of Chicago, I also had the Gear Up program. It was a very successful program that really helped facilitate the college-going climate, mindset, environment to excel. And I also want to acknowledge Mr. Jesus Ruiz, the dean from the Lakeshore campus, who approached me with this idea and said, "Hey, Teresa, do you think we can make this happen in Waukegan?" And when I heard it was Gear Up, I said, "Oh, I've worked with Gear Up in my previous position. I'm a big proponent, and I believe that this would just be a very added value to our district and really would impact the work that we're doing in our middle school and carry up through our high school." So on that note, I will turn it over to you two ladies, and thank you.
All right. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
We are very excited to be here, especially after the previous conversations that we just had. We can go to the next slide. Ms. Fulton and I have been working with Northeastern Illinois University on getting this grant proposal together. So again, this is gaining early awareness and readiness for undergraduate programs. especially for students in economically disadvantaged communities and their families. I think that is the key word that we like to highlight when we're talking about this program. The program is a 6 to 7 year grant. We would be starting with our class cohorts, the full graduating class of 2030 and 2031. So starting with our 6th and 7th graders and then moving with them along. We kind of outlined what that looks down at the bottom. This guarantees that we actually serve the entire cohort. This is not something where we take a select group of students. We actually serve the entire cohort and their families. So this isn't for one school. This isn't for one group of students. It is for all of them.
I'll just add that because we're also following them after they graduate, that's very important to keep our alumni connection. Many times people call and want to, us to get alumni back or jobs for alumni or whatever, and we don't have that connection. So this would guarantee after the year, they still are following them after they graduate for at least a year. So that's exciting to me.
And it would also help us track college persistence.
Yes, so you can see the three goals of this Gear Up program would really be increasing that post-secondary and readiness of our students, improving high school graduation and post-secondary enrollments. These are not new goals, but very, very important goals. And I think the most important thing to highlight of this is raising the knowledge, so the knowledge of the post-secondary options, preparation, and financing among students and families. One of the things that Evanda, Ms. Fulton, and I, as we're working with counselors and just different families with events as we work with them, a lot of the feedback we get is how do we start this earlier? How do we start these conversations earlier? So this allows us to really get in there and start some of this intentional college and career readiness work in the middle schools, ground level. So why is this important to us? This is in alignment with our Destination 2028. It's in alignment with our middle school redesign, high school transformation, and our pillar plans. So we have gotten some feedback, some from of the principals and some of our staff that we work with. And this will allow for us to really establish those systems and partnerships so that we can expand on what's already working here. Here are the program details. So this is a U.S. federally funded grant. Our target group is starting with the middle school, but continuing on with them through high school and after. The requested amount is approximately $800 per student for those whole graduating classes, and then it obviously goes on for the subsequent years. The district is required to prove these in-kind matching costs, but NEIU is the actual fiscal agent of the grant. So this is something that we have worked with Ms. Tate on and made sure that she has been a part of those meetings and in that collaboration as we work with NEIU on this. And the expected number of awards is about 1,200, and as Ms. Fulton and Ms. Tate are always talking to me, they say when we get it. So we would be notified when we get it, about 98 days after the due date. So the Center for College Access and Success actually has a really good track record with the Gear Up grant, securing the grants, and then continuing on with the grants. They've worked 6 Gear Up grants, working with multiple schools in and outside of CPS actually, 25 high schools, 50 middle schools, so their work is there. One of the very interesting things about this is that we can apply for subsequent grants afterwards, even while we're in it too. So as you're building that system for the graduating classes of 2030 and 2031, you can continue to go on, let's say, to 2032 and 2033, so that you can really build up those systems and make sure that everything's there. Some of our allowable expenses are obviously things like salary and benefits. One of the things that we have talked quite a bit about is if this is a grant, you have to make it sustainable. So what systems are we actually building in-house with the people that we have? Expanding on community partnerships. We have a lot of great things that are happening in the community. How do we take those and make them bigger and bolder? Professional development just for even our middle school staff so that they have those college and career readiness awareness conversations. Family and community events is a large part of it. That is something that you just need more manpower and all of the people to help with it. and different college and career events. An interesting thing that we have been talking about is even just getting more of that middle school exposure, and not just the student exposure, but the family exposure to different campuses, different experiences, so the parents who can sometimes be reluctant actually get to go and experience some of those things. And then obviously special events, tutoring, and summer program could be things that we look at too. So our next steps is really continuing that collaboration with NEIU, with Ms. Tate as our grant manager, and then submitting that grant, and then waiting to hear when we get it. Within our first year, we would do, NEIU is very hands-on in helping us do a needs assessment. So with those middle schools, with those high schools, and making sure that we know what the schools are saying they need, but then also working with students and families and the community on what they're saying they need as well. So that would be a part of it.
So there are questions.
I just got one.
I'm going to go Ms. Lindsay, Ms. Hannah, and Ms. Gonzalez.
This is very exciting, so thank you for expanding on this. Can you help me understand more on this in-kind matching costs, and NEIU will be the fiscal agent? So are you saying that they will be the ones to put the in-kind contributions, or is that on the district?
We have to show the in-kind cost.
Okay. Okay. So can you give some examples of what we can anticipate that might look like?
Yeah, so the in-kind costs can be like salaries or different things. So we, Avanda and I obviously both work on post-secondary. Avanda has a whole team for post-secondary. We can show those in-kind costs through that. And then obviously any events or things that we actually do as a district, we can show those as well.
So some of the things that we're already doing would qualify under that umbrella of in-kind. I just want to make sure that's super clear for everyone. And I love that we can apply for future years. So I would anticipate if you get one, then subsequent years might be easier to obtain as well if everything's in good order. With NEIU helping with the needs assessment, are we planning to leverage any of the needs assessment data we've already gathered in the past, or are they starting fresh?
That would be, we would start fresh.
Okay.
Ms. Hannah.
Why are we starting with the class of 2030?
They start in,
I got a personal reason because my granddaughter getting ready to go into high school.
well, Gear Up starts in middle school, right? So if we get it for this year, next academic year, it'll be in the play. So you got to start with the sixth graders. So
I see.
So, and then follow, and it's a 7-year grade. So it's not, we can't just start at 9th grade right now. So,
It's a cohort that builds up.
yeah.
Right.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. Ms. Gonzalez.
I have a couple questions. The first one to Ms. Lindsay's initial question. Do we have to show that 1.4 amount for the in-kind donations to be matched? Or what is the actual amount that needs to be in-kind for us to get the match?
Can I get back to you on that? I want to
Yes.
make sure that I give you the correct answer.
Okay. Just because I'm wondering how much we've actually budgeted in terms of college persistence, even at the middle school level, and if we run into issues with that. Ms. Polk left, but yeah.
Well, usually I do have a pretty hefty budget.
Okay.
I don't know about this year. Unless, I can ease my way into getting a pretty hefty budget again with Brian and Gwen. But usually my budget is around 1 million.
Okay.
So I think this year I did try to get $1.5 million. So
Okay.
it'll be close.
Okay, because I couldn't remember off the top of my head. But second question, I do appreciate that this starts at the middle school level. I think we've been needing that, right? I was more so thinking of it in terms of our existing relationships. Does that mean that this cohort wouldn't get the benefits of all the other programs, or like Waukegan College, or this is supplemental to all of that, right?
they'll still be able to participate in Waukegan to College or any other programs like this. It's
Okay.
So they'll still have
It's
access.
not mutually exclusive.
And I will tell you, I mean, and I don't want to speak for you, but I'm very familiar with the Gear Up and securing the grant in my previous role, so it could have changed. But there's a lot of conversation that would have to go in with NEIU to decide on what those allocations were, what are in kind. They may say you need a Gear Up coordinate. I mean, I'm just throwing things out there, or post-secondary coaches, which we already have. So I think we're asking some questions that a lot is going to come from that needs assessment when they do that, and then them saying, well, where we have to, or agreeing to where we earmark money to.
Got it. Okay. And just I'll circle back to that when we know more about the program and sit down with it. The other thing that I had a question about in relation to NEIU is that they helped the 6 grants up until 2021. Did they stop, and are we like the first new wave of grants that they're looking to help execute, or?
Yes, so they had paused on the grant, and
Okay.
this is the next newest round.
Okay, because I was just thinking of their capacity, like, oh, they're taking on, okay.
Mr. Riddle.
Yeah, my question is one of, I don't know, the thought came to me, we've got this program, Waukegan to College, that's done an excellent job for the past 12 years or so.
But it doesn't service every student.
No, of course it doesn't. But we're only talking about servicing here about 1,200 students.
And hopefully
Mr. Riddle, before we have to pick certain organizations to work with within the grant. Waukegan College is one of the ones we already talked to help us and put them in.
Grow this, organize it.
Because they're one of our college readiness.
Okay, so that's what I wondered, if we were making them like a part of the grant, or a consultant, or if you could partner with them. I don't know if the grant would consider that.
Yeah.
Okay.
We didn't want to mention the people we had already spoke to yet, and because we haven't officially got the grant, but because you and Ms. Gonzalez just brought it up, and I don't want y'all to think we're just exiting, certain organizations they've been contacting, hopefully. Okay.
Thank you.
We can't use Schuler, huh? It's gone, right?
Yeah,
that's another conversation for.
Can we put a stick pin in the Schuler conversation, because
Yes.
I've been working with a number of superintendents in Lake County, and so the jury's out on that right now. We're working through solutions, so we'll come back with
Right.
that.
Okay. But it sounds like a wonderful program. And like you said, there's so many students that really need this in our district, so that's terrific. Kudos
Good
to
luck.
what you're doing.
And good luck. So we want to get it. Thank you. We appreciate that. If we bring the agenda back up, we have information item which has been there. I know that's great news. It's not an action item, so I'm going to continue. But for the community that's been talking about CTE courses and wanting to see more hands-on things at the college, that's a great one that you guys can read.
Great.
19A old business, we got board policy 3307, purchasing procedures, soliciting prices, bids and quotations. Second reading. Go ahead, Superintendent.
It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the amendments to Board Policy 3307, purchasing procedures, soliciting prices, bids, and quotations as presented for second reading.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Riddle, second by Ms. Gonzalez. Any comments or questions on the motion? All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Policy is approved. We are now at item 21A, expulsion recommendation for
Okay, I have that.
student number ending in 131.
Yes. I have that resolution. So this is student expulsion modification, student number 131. Oh, then you read the resolution. Oh, okay.
So
I motion to-
motion by Ms.
Second.
Gonzalez, second by Ms. Lindsay. And then
Now read it. Okay. Whereas, following a building level investigation, student number 131 was determined to have possessed a weapon at school, which under the school code requires a mandatory referral for expulsion for a period of at least 1 year. unless modified by the superintendent, whose decision may be modified by the board. Whereas the Board of Education, Waukegan School Community Unit District 60, did receive and consider the principal's recommendation and the superintendent's agreement to modify the mandatory expulsion period for student number 131 and the reasons therefore. And whereas the building administration has begun class-based discussions throughout the school around safety in the schools. And whereas the modification proposed is in the best interest of the district and the student, and based on a totality of the circumstances, supports the maintenance of a safe school environment, free of disruptive influences which can be a distraction to learning while continuing to hold this student accountable for the student's conduct. Now therefore it is hereby resolved that one, whereas the clauses are adopted herein by reference as findings of the board. 2, the board concurs with the superintendent's modification of the mandatory minimum expulsion period to no days of expulsion, the days of out-of-school suspension already served, and class-based safety instruction meeting the learning needs of the student and the safety needs of the school. 3, the superintendent or the superintendent's designee is to notify the parent of student number 131 in writing of the board's determination within the next 5 school business days. Number 4, this resolution is effective upon approval by the board.
So we already had a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Mr. McBride? Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Ms. Lensing?
Yes.
President Ewing?
Yes, item approved, motion carries. We are now at the opportunity for board member time. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. It is 9 p.m. We do have to go back into closed session. I'm gonna start at that end with Ms. Gonzalez.
I have no updates, so I will pass.
Mr. Riddle,
Likewise, because of the time, I will pass.
Ms. Hannah.
Just want to, first and foremost, I want to wish Dr. Jason Nault happy birthday. I know it's probably, I don't know if it's past, but I would, and I want to thank him for the cupcake that he made sure that I got.
I'm jealous, Dr. Nault.
I went to see Willy Wonka.
Oh.
It was the students were exceptional, and I want to give kudos to Miss Massimo for doing this. And my biggest gratification is the fact that that our elementary and middle school students are into doing drama. They're being exposed to drama, and by the time they get to high school, we're gonna have some productions at the high school that are even better than the ones that we have now, and we have some great ones now. And so the students were exceptional. I do want to especially mention Mr. Ewing that was in the play, the production, and man, he could sing.
It's not me.
Right, I was like, wait, what?
And why I have to clarify that is because to my teachers who also teach my son and refer to him as Brandon often, he hates being confused for me. He's taller than me, and it's a whole thing.
Well,
So,
but he was excellent in the play, and I was just overjoyed there. I asked Mr. Ewing, just as a sidebar, if the cameras were pointed toward the podium, and I've been asking people if they could see individuals like at public comment time, and I don't think that the camera is on them. So could we please look at that? Yeah, if we could look at that. But
I know that
that's
they
it.
have been on them.
Oh, because Ms. Gonzalez is saying she sees them the times that she missed, but we can make sure.
Yeah,
that
the meetings I missed, they were on them.
Okay.
Sorry to
Thank you,
interject.
because I just been getting comments about that, so I just thought I'd mention it. But other than that, that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. Ms. Lindsay?
So I too was at the Walk Pack presentation of Willy Wonka, and I concur with Ms. Hannah. The kids did a phenomenal job. I was part of the Waukegan Community Players way back in the day under Mrs. Whipple, and the Park District does have a program for drama as well under Miss Gloria Terry, which is great. What I'm excited about is, to your point again, this is reaching out to our district students, elementary, middle, across the board, if you're interested in it. It strikes in a passion and an interest, and it keeps you engaged, and that's what we want. You build community, whether you're part of a sports community, a drama community, a music community, and that's what we want to see. So I'm really excited that it was such a great production, and that everyone involved, from the teachers that volunteered their time to the parents that helped supported, their students getting there, because that was a feat for some people, and even those that even helped directly with the production. So excellent all around. I'm excited to see more. There is upcoming the Seussical. I believe there's going to be some auditions coming up here mid-May, so keep an eye out for further communications on that as well. I also want to touch base with regard to the buses and the field trip. So I had the pleasure of helping with a high school field trip this past week. The students were fabulous. They were great. We went to a zoo, didn't see too many animals because the Big Cats was closed, but that's not on them. But we did get to see some, and we saw a dolphin show, and the students were phenomenal. They were just absolutely wonderful to be around. The one concern I did have from the field trip was we drove to Chicago and we had to be back on the bus at 12:30. So that cut our time at the zoo once we got in down to essentially an hour plus like a 30-minute show. So that's an hour to see animals, to get some food in, and hop on a bus. And it's a shame that we couldn't have access to transportation to extend that. So I want to echo Ms. Hannah's concern about looking at that contract and making sure that when we are doing these field trips for our students, we can maximize their time out and really enjoy the full experience. I also wanted to bring some good news that the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, recently approved eliminating non-compete clauses, which is fabulous news across the job market. So if you haven't heard, essentially within the next 20 days, of course there's going to be some lawsuits, I'm sure, from companies, but in the next 20 days, most positions, if you have a non-compete clause tied to your employment, that's going to go away for a lot of people. Not senior level management, understandably so, but keep an eye out for that. I think that helps the district when we start looking at any contracts that we have in place and any employees under those contracts that want to transition to district positions. I think it'll make an easier road. And then the last component was with regard to the public comment. So the reason, just to be transparent, because I believe in transparency, that I didn't share any pictures. Ms. Hannah had brought it up in a previous meeting. The administration said that they were looking into it. I sent some follow-up questions, and we're still waiting on some more information on that. I firmly believe in the call-in process. If we're going to solve any issues in this district, we need to call people in instead of putting them on blast. It's not, in Mr. Ewing's terms, ways to get gotchas, it's ways to fix what's going on in our district. And so we need to allow people to answer questions and make any changes that are needed. So if there are concerns with any of my behaviors, I request you call me in, and I am happy to answer any questions as long as it's not closed session material. So with that, I hope everyone has a great and safe weekend and week for the rest of the year. Not yesterday. I can't even talk. It's late.
It's 9 o'clock.
I'm out. That's it. That's all I got.
With that, I'd like a motion to go into closed session under C1, specific personnel, C11, actual threatened litigation.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Riddle, second by Ms. Gonzalez. Roll call.
Mr. McBride, Ms. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Mr. Riddle.
Yes.
Ms. Hannah.
Yes.
Ms. Lensing.
Yes.
President Ewing.
Yes, we are now going to conclude after closed session, so this